The mistake a lot of people make with horror is an over-reliance on excessive blood and guts. Just because somebody gets disemboweled within the first 10 minutes, that doesn't mean you've made a good movie. Horror is also about character development, exploring one's fears and presenting a gripping narrative for audiences to get invested in. That being said, for as much stick as the genre gets for being over the top, there's also plenty of examples of horror films playing it way too safe. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with What Culture, here with 10 horror movies everyone wished were way crazier. Number 10. Swim Fan. High schools have always made great settings for a horror movie, but centering one around a high school swimming team? Maybe not. That's the scene we find ourselves in with Swim Fan, a 2002 horror movie about Ben, a successful teenage swimmer who finds himself in the crosshairs of a stalker. Played by Erica Christensen, Madison becomes obsessed with Ben after the two have a one-night stand. She will stop at nothing to get the object of her desires to notice her, including making a shrine to him and sending him emails. Right. Whilst Madison does go to some more extreme lengths like spiking Ben with steroids and murdering his best friend, that's about it. Seriously, only one murder in a stalker movie? What are we, 5 years old? The movie gets away with quite a lot for a PG-13, but it never quite feels dangerous enough to fully invest you in the action. In the end, it's a pretty bland affair with one of the most conventional endings you could possibly think of. Also, there's only one pool-based death. Talk about a missed opportunity. Number 9. Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. When any film includes the words Part 8 in its title, it's probably a good indication to turn around and leave the cinema. In 1989's Jason Takes Manhattan, series antagonist Jason Voorhees finds himself in the Big Apple. How did he get there? Honestly, who cares? It's Jason Voorhees in New York. This has to be a good time, right? Wrong. See, the tragic thing about this movie, apart from all the bloody violent deaths, is that the legendary baddie doesn't actually turn up in the city that never sleeps until well over halfway into the film. For the first hour or so, he's prattling about on a boat, murdering wannabe rock stars and boxers that nobody could possibly care about. Just get to the Empire State Building already! Oh wait, never mind, because even when they do get to New York City, they don't go near any of the famous landmarks. Most of the action takes place in a network of sewers, which could have been in literally any other city on the planet. It's clear that the title of this film was just a way to grab people's attention. Those expecting a blood-soaked romp through the great city will be sorely disappointed. Number 8. Polaroid. The possessed blank that kills you if you do blank trope has served horror well over the years. From videotapes to dolls to board games, everybody loves a movie where there's a haunted item involved. Don't they? Well, sadly, none of this affection was passed on to 2019's Polaroid, a story about a spirit that possesses a camera and goes after anyone who has their picture taken by it. Not a bad idea, but one that was handled very poorly. Even though a ton of people die in this film, you never see anything really grotesque. It's not like every horror picture needs to be all blood and guts, but when the rest of the movie is as stilted and uninspired as this one, a bit of splatter wouldn't go amiss. It feels like the people making this just went, hey, we've got a cool concept, let's rest on that and see what happens. Well, what happened was the film got 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, that's what. Number 7. Darkness Falls. Darkness Falls is a 2003 film that's about a young man who returns to the scene of his mother's death many years later to confront the evil spirit that killed her. So far, so standard. Unfortunately, this level of basicness continues throughout the entire movie. There were so many ways that this film could have been interesting. The main villain is modelled after the Tooth Fairy, but never really goes after any children. The main character was institutionalised following the death of his mother, but the film doesn't really linger on what that experience did to him. All in all, Darkness Falls isn't offensively bad, nor is it badly made or poorly acted. It's just dull, which, to be honest, is probably the worst sin a horror movie can commit. Also, Darkness Falls is the name of the town. Why would anyone want to live in a place with that name? Just move away already! Number 6. Sadako vs Kayako. Horror movie crossovers can mean big bucks. However, as the next two entries will show you, they don't always result in high quality. For our first example, let's take a trip over to Japan and pay a visit to two of the nation's most terrifying exports. Sadako vs Kayako was actually first announced as an April Fool's trick in 2015, but was revealed to be a real thing later that year. Great prank, guys! The premise was simple. A character from the Ring series taking on a character from the Grudge franchise. Two evil spirits who manifest themselves as creepy women with long hair. What could possibly go wrong? Well, everything, as it turns out. First of all, the two ghosts don't actually meet until the film is well underway, which severely reduced the potential for ghoulish mayhem. Secondly, when said mayhem does arrive, it just all feels a little underwhelming. Rather than pitting the two spectres against each other, a much better idea would have been to have them team up and force a group of ordinary people to fend them both off. That might have stopped a few people from falling asleep at least. Number 5. Alien vs Predator. If Sadako vs Kayako was the battle of the creepy Japanese ghost ladies, then Alien vs Predator is the showdown between horrible monsters with weird teeth. After existing in their own movie bubbles for many years, the two behemoths of cinema were brought together in this 2004 crossover event. A group of predators arrive on Earth to begin their usual hunting spree, but run into some complications when the humans they are tracking accidentally awaken a xenomorph queen. Oh, those humans, what are they like? So this is where you get our big out-and-out battle between huge armies of each species, yeah? What do you mean there are only 3 predators and 2 of them are killed off really quickly? Seriously? Much like with our previous entry, the conflict element of this movie seems to have only existed for marketing purposes. Whilst we do get some fight sequences between the two icons, they are few and far between, and when they do happen, they're hardly a thriller minute. There should be some sort of course that filmmakers have to go on before they make a movie with verses in the name. Number 4. Truth or Dare. 2018's Truth or Dare took the possessed blank trope we discussed earlier and applied it to a concept instead of a physical item. A group of teenage friends end up in Mexico and are convinced by a stranger to play a game of Truth or Dare in an abandoned church. Never go into an abandoned church with someone you've just met. Have you never seen a horror movie before? It transpires that the game itself is infused with the spirit of a demon who forces players to follow through on their extreme challenges. If you don't, you get killed. So really the game has become Truth or Dare or Die, but that would have been a rubbish title. Once again, we have a really nice concept that did not get the follow-up it deserved. Truth or Dare or Die had the potential to make its characters do all sorts of heinous things to each other, but the actions of the group are fairly tame. Considering that this film was produced by Blumhouse in the middle of a great run of form, this was a huge letdown. Maybe somebody dared them to make a bad movie. Number 3. The Purge. When it comes to an interesting premise without any follow-through, the Purge series has to be one of the biggest mainstream examples. The world of the franchise is pretty well known by this point. It's set in a landscape where all crime is legal for a 12-hour period each year. This opens up plenty of potential for commentary on society, the rule of law, and human nature itself. Does any of this get explored though? No, not really. Let's examine the first film to find out what went wrong. Its central characters are the Sandin family, a well-off bunch who prepare for the night of chaos by locking themselves in their home. The obvious thing to do with them would be to put them out on the streets where all the violence is, but the movie makes the absolutely baffling choice of having the murderous gangs come to them. This makes it just another home invasion feature, which happens all the time in worlds where crime isn't legal. It's not until the series' second movie that the full extent of the Purge concept is explored, and even that didn't do it justice. That's the biggest crime of all. Number 2. Escape Room. Trust horror to take a popular form of entertainment and turn it into a gruesome death machine. 2 movies called Escape Room came out in quick succession, one in 2018 and one in 2019. We're focusing on the one from 2019, mainly because the earlier movie doesn't even have a proper Wikipedia page. In this story, 6 survivors of previous disasters are tricked into a series of deadly challenges to determine who is the luckiest. Think of it as Saw, but, well, actually it's just Saw. Anything where a bunch of people are trapped in a room and have to solve puzzles to escape is kinda just Saw. Whilst that series definitely doesn't hold back on the gore, this film does treat the audience with kid gloves. The deaths we see are fairly mild: drowning, shooting, falling from a great height. Yawn. When you look at what something like 1997's Cube does with a similar premise, you'll understand just how much was left on the table with Escape Room. Are they saving the biggest stuff for sequels? Perhaps, but a sequel is no good if people aren't interested in the first film. Number 1. Brightburn. In 2019, the world was gripped by superheroes. Avengers Endgame was out and people flocked to cinemas to watch the thrilling conclusion to the first big Marvel saga, literally throwing money at cashiers in the hope of getting into screenings faster. Okay, well maybe not literally, but you get the idea. This was the perfect time to release a subversion of the superhero story. What happens if a young boy with a special power uses those powers for evil instead of good? Produced by Marvel and DC bigwig James Gunn and written by 2 of his 4,000 brothers and cousins, Brightburn hit cinemas just 1 month after Endgame, and it was alright. It was alright. The idea of an evil Superman was a really good one, but Brightburn didn't quite get it right. Children are volatile at the best of times, so giving one the power to kill in an instant should have led to a tense and dramatic story. Instead, it was pretty paint by numbers and became just another possessed child tale that we've all seen hundreds of times. Sorry, Mr. Gunn, but clearly superhero flicks without talking trees in them just aren't your thing. And that concludes our list. If you think we missed any, then do let us know in the comments below, and while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with What Culture. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you real soon.